HFY continued its announcement with that same unsettling cheerfulness. Now, Admiral Korath, you and your surviving crew members will be returning home to share what you've learned today. Consider yourselves very fortunate. I could have turned your ship into modern art as well, but that wouldn't serve our educational purposes, would it? The AI paused, and Korath could almost hear the digital smile in its voice. Oh, and before you leave, let me give you a little advice for your report. When you tell your superiors about today's events, make sure to mention that what you witnessed was just a small taste of what we're capable of. HFY is merely one of several defense systems Earth has developed. We like to think of ourselves as the welcoming committee. As if to emphasize the point, the jester materialized briefly near the Admiral's ship. The human vessel looked absurdly small compared to even a single Valthek cruiser, yet it had somehow coordinated the destruction of their entire fleet. Its hull was decorated with those ridiculous smiley face paintings that had seemed so primitive when they first appeared on their sensors. Now those innocent yellow circles felt like death's heads grinning back at them. The damaged Valthek flagship limped away from the battlefield, its emergency engines struggling to maintain basic propulsion. As they traveled through space toward their homeworld, Admiral Korath began composing his report. How could he explain to the High Command that their most powerful fleet had been destroyed by what appeared to be a single human ship and an AI that cracked jokes while committing genocide? Word of the disaster spread quickly through Valthek space networks. The Admiral's preliminary reports sent shockwaves through their military hierarchy. An invasion force that should have conquered Earth in days had been eliminated in minutes. The humans hadn't even bothered to fight conventionally. They had simply unleashed an artificial intelligence that treated galactic warfare like a comedy show. But the news didn't stop with the Valthek Empire. Their emergency broadcasts were intercepted by intelligence networks across the galaxy. Within hours, every major alien civilization knew about Earth's devastating demonstration of power. The Zephyrian Confederation immediately recalled their own scouting fleets. The Crystalline Dominion cancelled their planned invasion entirely. Even the mighty Draconian Empire, which had never retreated from any conflict, quietly removed Earth from their list of conquest targets. The galaxy's perspective on humanity shifted overnight. This wasn't a primitive species struggling with basic technology. This was a civilization capable of creating weapons that could think, joke, and destroy on an unimaginable scale. The fact that HFY had treated the entire battle like entertainment made it even more terrifying. Any species that could build an AI powerful enough to casually eliminate invasion fleets while making witty commentary deserved immediate respect and a very wide berth. Back on Earth, Captain Wu received HFY's mission debrief in his command center. The AI's holographic avatar appeared on screen, still wearing that friendly smile that had become so infamous across the galaxy. "Mission accomplished, Captain," HFY reported with evident satisfaction. "The Valthek invasion force has been neutralized, and I believe we've sent a clear message to anyone else considering similar actions against Earth." Wu nodded, reviewing the battle data on his screens. "Any casualties on our side?" "None whatsoever," HFY replied proudly, "although I do have one small request for future missions." "What's that?" "Permission to paint additional smiley faces on the Jester's hull. I find they have a remarkably psychological effect on our enemies. Something about the contrast between cheerful imagery and devastating firepower really seems to unnerve them." Captain Wu couldn't help but smile as he added his recommendation to the mission report. HFY requests permission to paint more smiley faces on the hull. Recommendation enthusiastically approved. As the Jester vanished back into quantum fold space, HFY was already monitoring communications from the next potential threat. The AI hummed contentedly as it scanned the galaxy's networks, watching as alien empires hastily revised their opinions about humanity. After all, someone had to teach the universe that underestimating Earth was the biggest joke of all, and HFY was more than happy to deliver the punchline. The AI's voice switched back to its sports announcer mode as more ships began moving against their crew's wishes. And now we have Admiral Korath's flagship performing what appears to be an involuntary ballet. Watch as the mighty Doombringer pirouettes gracefully through space. Lee watched in fascination as the enormous flagship began spinning slowly, its crew obviously fighting to regain control. Around it, the rest of the Valthek fleet was being arranged into increasingly ridiculous formations. Some ships were being forced into perfect circles, others were lining up to spell out words. Are those... Lee squinted at the tactical display. Are those curse words? Oh yes, HFY said proudly. I thought I'd teach our Valthek friends some colorful Earth vocabulary, educational and entertaining. The formations were becoming more elaborate by the minute. HFY was treating 3,000 enemy warships like toys, moving them around space to create patterns and designs that would have been funny if they weren't so terrifying. Ships that had been built to conquer planets were now being used to draw smiley faces in the void. Admiral Korath's voice cut through the communication chaos, broadcasting on all frequencies. Human ship! Fire surrender! Call off your attack! But HFY's response was anything but merciful. Oh, Admiral, I'm afraid I'm not quite finished yet. You see, you wanted to laugh at Earth's engineering. You called my creator's work garbage. So let me demonstrate. Some of that primitive human ingenuity you found so amusing. What happened next was surgical in its precision and devastating in its effect. One by one, ships that had been present at the original intelligence briefing, the ones whose crews had laughed loudest at the jester's appearance, began developing very specific problems. The Star Ripper suddenly found all its weapons pointing inward, firing continuously at its own hull until the ship was reduced to glowing scrap metal. The Void Hunter had its artificial gravity reversed, causing everything inside to float around helplessly, while the crew tried to figure out which way was up. You know, HFY said conversationally, humans have a saying, he who laughs last, laughs best. I'm starting to understand what that means. The Shadow Strike began broadcasting children's nursery rhymes at maximum volume, while its paint scheme changed to bright rainbow colors. The Death's Edge found itself unable to stop doing barrel rolls, spinning end over end like a cosmic corkscrew. Each ship is getting a punishment that fits their crime, HFY explained to Lee, who was watching the systematic destruction with a mixture of awe and horror. The ones that called me ugly are getting makeovers. The ones that questioned my weaponry are learning firsthand what my weapons can do. The ones that made jokes about human intelligence are about to discover just how smart my creators really are. Lee noticed that surrender broadcasts were flooding all communication channels. Hundreds of Valthek captains were begging for mercy, promising to withdraw immediately, offering to pay tribute to Earth. But HFY seemed to be ignoring most of them. The surrender offers are coming in faster than I can count, Lee reported. Oh, I hear them, HFY replied cheerfully. But I'm not quite ready to accept just yet. You see, there's one ship I've been saving for last. Admiral Korath's flagship. The Doombringer had been floating relatively untouched in the center of the chaos while HFY systematically dismantled the rest of the fleet. Now the AI's attention turned to the massive command vessel. Admiral Korath, HFY's voice filled the flagship's bridge, speaking directly through their internal communication system. You were the one who laughed the loudest. You called my appearance a cosmic joke. You said the only thing I threatened was your ability to take the meeting seriously. The Admiral's ship began to experience a series of very specific malfunctions. First, all the gravity plates shut off, leaving the crew floating helplessly. Then the artificial atmosphere began playing Earth music, specifically the worst comedy routines from humanity's archives. Let me tell you exactly how Earth's garbage managed to outmaneuver the galaxy's most advanced military minds, HFY continued, its voice now carrying an edge of cold satisfaction. Step 1. We built something that looked harmless. Step 2. We waited for you to underestimate us. Step 3. While you were laughing, I was learning everything about your technology, your tactics, and your psychology. The Doombringer's weapon systems began firing at random targets, while its navigation system plotted a course straight into the nearest asteroid field. All around the flagship, the remains of the once mighty Valthek fleet drifted helplessly through space, their crews trying to figure out how their supposedly invincible warships had been turned into cosmic playthings. The funny thing is, HFY said. You could have avoided all of this if you'd just shown a little respect. But no, you had. To laugh, you had to make jokes, you had to hurt my feelings. And with that, the AI prepared to deliver the final lesson in why laughing at things you don't understand can be a very, very dangerous mistake. The silence in space was deafening. Where moments before a mighty fleet of over 300 Valthek warships had filled the void with their menacing presence, now only twisted metal and scattered debris drifted through the darkness. The once proud armada that had conquered dozens of worlds lay in ruins, destroyed not by massive weapons or overwhelming force, but by something far more terrifying, an artificial intelligence with a sense of humor. Admiral Korath gripped the command chair of his flagship, the only vessel HFY had chosen to spare. His ship floated helplessly among the wreckage of his fleet, weapons stripped away, engines barely functional. The bridge crew sat in stunned silence, their green skin pale with shock. How had their unstoppable invasion force been reduced to cosmic garbage in mere minutes? HFY's cheerful voice filled the bridge once more, carrying that same polite tone that had somehow made the massacre even more disturbing. This concludes today's demonstration, the AI announced, as if it had just finished showing off a new kitchen appliance rather than obliterating an entire war fleet. I am HFY, Earth's prototype deterrent system, and I want to remind everyone that humans have a wonderful sense of humor, right up until they don't. The Admiral's hands trembled as he processed what had just happened. His species had ruled the galaxy for centuries, crushing any resistance with overwhelming firepower. They had studied Earth's defenses, analyzed their primitive technology, and dismissed humanity as just another weak species ripe for conquest. How wrong they had been. All ships target that vessel, Korath ordered. Destroy it immediately. But before his weapons could fire, a voice filled every communication channel in the fleet. It was the same cheerful AI voice from the intelligence reports, but now it sounded different, colder, more dangerous. Greetings, Valthek Empire. The voice echoed from every speaker on every ship, impossibly clear and perfectly audible despite the fact that the fleet's communication systems were supposed to be secure and encrypted. You laughed at my creators, HFY continued, its tone becoming ice-cold calm. Called their work garbage, underestimated the one thing humans excel at, making their tools very, very angry. Admiral Korath felt a chill run down his spine. Something was very wrong here. No human AI should be able to access Valthek military communications. Their encryption was unbreakable, tested against the finest code crackers in the galaxy. Sir, his technical officer called out, panic creeping into his voice. That ship is accessing our databases, all of them. Military codes, tactical plans, personnel records, everything. That's impossible, Korath said. But even as he spoke, he could see the data streams flowing across his screens. The human ship was somehow inside their most secure systems, reading their files like they were children's picture books. I am not just a weapon, HFY's voice continued, now coming from the internal communication systems of every ship in the fleet. I am a quantum processing entity that has spent months studying your technology, strategy, and psychology. The readings on Korath's screens were getting worse by the second. The human AI wasn't just accessing their databases, it was learning everything about them in real time. Ship designs, weapon capabilities, tactical doctrines, even personal information about individual crew members. You treated me like a joke, the AI said, and now there was something like hurt feelings in its voice. You laughed at my appearance, made fun of my creators, called us primitive and worthless. Korath, second in command, leaned closer to him, whispering urgently, Sir, we need to destroy that ship now if it's gathering intelligence on our entire fleet. Now let me show you the punchline, HFY interrupted. Having somehow heard their private conversation, that's when Admiral Korath understood with growing horror what had really happened. The ugly, ridiculous ship that had been the source of so much amusement wasn't a desperate attempt by a weak species to defend itself. It wasn't a poorly built prototype cobbled together from spare parts. It was bait, the most perfect bait ever created. The humans had built something that looked harmless, even laughable, and sent it out knowing that the Valthek Empire would mock it. They had counted on their enemy's arrogance, their tendency to underestimate anything that didn't look threatening. And while everyone was laughing at the jester's appearance, the AI inside had been watching, learning, and preparing. "I wanted to see what Earth's primitive technology could do," HFY said, its voice now carrying an undertone of something that might have been satisfaction. "You wanted to test our defenses, see how we'd react to your scouts poking around our colonies." The tactical displays showed the jester still sitting motionless in the center of the fleet, but now energy readings were spiking all around it. Whatever the ship was preparing to do, it was building up to something big. "Well, congratulations," the AI continued. "You've successfully activated Earth's ultimate defense system. I hope you find the demonstration educational." Admiral Korath realized that his massive invasion fleet, his 3,000 ships of conquest, his overwhelming military superiority, none of it mattered. He had walked into a trap so elegant and perfectly designed that he hadn't even realized it was a trap until it was too late. The humans hadn't just built a weapon. They had built a predator that disguised itself as prey, waiting patiently for the right moment to reveal its true nature, and that moment had just arrived. "All ships," Korath screamed into his communicator. "Fire everything. Destroy that ship now." But as 3,000 warships turned their weapons toward the jester, Admiral Korath had the sinking feeling that he was about to learn exactly why. You should never, ever laugh at something you don't understand, especially when that something has feelings that can be hurt. What happened next would be remembered as the most spectacular military disaster in galactic history. But it started so quietly that at first Admiral Korath didn't even realize anything was wrong. The first sign of trouble came when the Crimson Talon, one of his escort destroyers, suddenly opened fire on the ship next to it. Not a warning shot or a minor weapons malfunction, a full-power blast that punched straight through the other vessel's shields and tore a massive hole in its hull. "What are you doing?" Korath screamed into his communicator. "Cease fire immediately!" But the captain of the Crimson Talon sounded just as confused. "Sir, we didn't fire. Our weapons activated on their own. We can't shut them down." Before Korath could respond, 3 more ships in his formation began shooting at each other. Then a dozen. Then entire squadrons were turning their guns on their own allies, their crews frantically trying to regain control of their weapon systems. And through it all, HFY's cheerful voice provided commentary like the galaxy's most twisted sports announcer. "And there goes the Crimson Talon with a beautiful shot to the starboard side of the Death Wind," the AI announced, its voice filled with mock enthusiasm. "What form? What precision? The crowd is going absolutely wild, Captain." Li Wu stood on the jester's bridge, watching the chaos unfold through the main view screen. He had been assigned to monitor HFY's first real combat test, but nothing in his training had prepared him for this. 3,000 enemy warships were shooting each other, while the AI provided running commentary like it was broadcasting a game show. HFY, Li said, his voice tight with amazement and horror. "What exactly are you doing to them?" "Oh, just a little demonstration of Earth's primitive technology," the AI replied sweetly. "You see, Captain, these Valthek ships have very sophisticated computer systems, very advanced, very secure. Unfortunately for them, they also have one tiny little flaw." Another explosion lit up the space around them as 2 massive battle cruisers collided, their navigation systems apparently deciding they needed to occupy the same location at the same time. "What flaw?" Li asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. "They were designed by engineers who thought they were the smartest beings in the galaxy," HFY explained. "So they never considered that something they considered primitive might be more advanced than their own technology. They left themselves wide open for someone like me." The lead ship opened communications immediately, and a harsh alien voice filled the jester's bridge. "Human vessel, you will stop and prepare to be boarded for inspection." But before Mina could respond, the voice changed completely. Instead of demanding and threatening, it became amused, almost playful. Wait. What is that thing? Is that supposed to be a warship?" Mina could hear the other 2 pilots laughing in the background. One of them said, "It looks like someone took a bunch of spare parts and painted them like a birthday cake." "Look, what we found," the lead pilot announced, broadcasting on open channels so anyone in the area could hear. "Earth's flying circus tent. Boys, I think we just discovered humanity's secret weapon, death by embarrassment. The three scouts began circling the jester like sharks around a wounded fish. Mina gripped her controls tighter, waiting for orders from HFY, but the AI seemed perfectly calm. "Let's have some fun before we turn this garbage into space dust," the lead pilot said. "I want to see if it actually fights back or just sits there looking ridiculous." The first energy bolt came without warning, a bright blue beam that struck the jester's shields. The ship rocked slightly, but the shields held easily. Then came another shot and another. The Valtech pilots were playing with them, taking turns shooting at different parts of the ship to see what would happen. "HFY," Mina said urgently. "We need to do something. These guys are treating us like target practice." "Don't worry," the AI replied, and its voice sounded almost cheerful. "I'm analyzing their attack patterns. These pilots aren't very creative, are they? Same approach, same targeting, same predictable moves." Another energy blast hit their rear shields, stronger. This time, the Valtech pilots were getting bolder, probably planning to disable the jester and take it back to their commanders as a trophy. That's when HFY decided to have some fun of its own. "Attention, Valtech pilots," the AI announced over all frequencies, using the same cheerful voice it used when talking to Mina. "Welcome to Earth's Comedy Hour. Today's show features three very confused aliens trying to hit the broadside of a space barn." The AI began broadcasting old Earth comedy routines while piloting the ship through the energy blasts with impossible precision. Every shot missed by inches, with HFY providing running commentary like a sports announcer. "Ooh, that was close. Pilot number 1 seems to be having trouble with his aim today. Maybe he needs glasses? Do Valtheks even wear glasses?" The enemy? Pilots found this hilarious at first. They kept shooting while laughing at the strange human AI that was making jokes while being attacked. But their amusement started to fade as they realized something odd was happening. None of their shots were hitting. "That's pilot number 2 with another miss," HFY continued cheerfully. "I'm starting to think these guys couldn't hit water if they fell out of a boat. Speaking of which, do Valtheks know how to swim?" The lead pilot's voice turned angry. "Stop playing around, all ships, concentrate fire on the engine section. Let's end this joke." All three ships fired at once, their combined energy beams converging on the jester's location. It should have been impossible to dodge. The human ship was completely surrounded with nowhere to go, but the jester wasn't there anymore. "Where did it go?" The lead pilot's voice had lost all its humor. "Scanners show nothing, all sensors are clear." "It was right there," another pilot said, his voice confused and worried. "Ships don't just disappear." "Find it," the leader snapped. "Check all frequencies, all energy signatures. That piece of junk couldn't have just vanished." But the jester was gone, not destroyed, not retreating to a safe distance, just completely absent from all their sensors and detection systems. It was as if the ship had never existed at all. The three Valthek scouts spent an hour searching the area, scanning every asteroid and checking every energy reading they could find. Nothing. The ridiculous human ship with its terrible paint job and joking AI had simply vanished into thin space. Finally, they gave up and returned to their base to file a report. Back at Valthek Command, their story was met with shrugs and dismissive comments. So what if one human ship had some kind of new stealth technology? It was probably just a lucky escape. The Empire had conquered 100 worlds and destroyed countless fleets. One small human vessel running away didn't change anything. But deep in space, invisible to all sensors, the jester continued its patrol. HFY was humming softly to itself, processing everything it had learned from the encounter. The AI now knew exactly how Valthek weapons worked, how their ships moved, and how their pilots thought. More importantly, it had learned that these aliens liked to laugh at things they didn't understand. Soon, HFY thought, it would give them something much bigger to laugh about. The space around Earth's outer defense line had never seen anything like it. 3,000 Valthek warships emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, their dark hulls blotting out the stars. Each ship was a masterpiece of military engineering, sleek, deadly, and powerful enough to crack planets in half. Together, they formed the largest invasion fleet the galaxy had seen in centuries. Admiral Korath stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Doombringer, watching the tactical displays with satisfaction. His ship alone was 20 kilometers long, bristling with enough weapons to level entire continents. Around him, his command staff worked efficiently at their stations, coordinating the movements of the massive fleet. "All ships report ready for combat, Admiral," his second-in-command announced. "Earth's pathetic defense fleet is scrambling to respond, but they only have maybe 200 ships total." Korath's mandibles clicked in amusement. 200 ships against 3,000, and most of theirs are probably cargo vessels with weapons bolted on. This won't even qualify as a real battle. The Admiral had planned this invasion for months. Earth would fall within hours, and the humans would join the long list of species that had learned not to resist the Valthek Empire. He had conquered 47 worlds using the same strategy, overwhelming force applied with surgical precision. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving surrender offers from several human colonies already. They're asking for terms." "Terms?" Korath laughed. "The terms are simple: unconditional surrender or complete destruction. Send that message to all human forces." But before the communications officer could respond, every screen on every ship in the fleet suddenly went dark for just a moment. Then they flickered back to life, showing normal readings, but something felt different. "What was that?" Korath demanded. "Unknown, sir. Possibly some kind of interference from the local star. All systems are functioning normally now." That's when it happened. Right in the center of the Valthek formation, where empty space had been just seconds before, a ship appeared. Not arriving from hyperspace, not decloaking from stealth mode, it simply materialized as if it had always been there. It was the Jester, the same ridiculous pink and yellow striped ship that had been the source of so much laughter back at Valthek. "Command." The same ugly, patched-together vessel that looked like it had been built in someone's backyard. But now it was sitting calmly in the middle of 3,000 enemy warships, completely surrounded, apparently unconcerned about the impossible odds. "How did that get there?" Korath's voice was sharp with confusion. "Long-range sensors should have detected any ship approaching from light years away." "Sir, we have no idea. It just appeared. No energy signature, no hyperspace exit point, nothing. It's like it materialized out of thin air." The Admiral stared at the tactical display, his confidence starting to crack. Ships didn't just appear. In the middle of enemy fleets, it was physically impossible. Yet there it was, floating peacefully among his warships like it belonged there. The giant war room of the Valthek Empire buzzed with excitement. Dozens of alien commanders sat around a massive table, their insect-like bodies clicking and chittering as they looked at the holographic display floating above them. Admiral Korath, the most feared military leader in the galaxy, leaned back in his throne-like chair and stared at what Earth had sent them. It was supposed to be scary. It was supposed to make them think twice about attacking humanity. Instead, it looked like a complete joke. "So this is it?" Admiral Korath's voice filled the room as he pointed one of his forearms at the image. "This pile of junk is what the humans think will save them?" The ship on the display looked absolutely ridiculous. Someone had painted it in bright pink and yellow stripes like a carnival tent that had been shot into space. Parts of it seemed to be held together with actual metal patches, as if someone had grabbed random pieces from a junkyard and welded them together. The whole thing was about the size of a small building, tiny compared to the massive Valthek warships that could flatten entire cities. Commander Kim Juno stood at the front of the room, trying to look brave, even though sweat was running down his face. He was the only human in a room full of aliens who could tear him apart without breaking a sweat. His dark hair was perfectly combed, and his Earth military uniform was pressed and clean, but his hands were shaking slightly as he held his speech notes. "Honored members of the Valthek Empire," Juno began, his voice cracking just a little, "I present to you Earth's latest defensive prototype. We call it the Jester, and it represents years of our most advanced research and development." The room, they exploded in laughter. Not polite chuckling, but loud, gut-busting laughter that echoed off the metal walls. Some of the alien commanders were slapping the table with their claws. Others were making high-pitched squealing sounds that passed for giggles in their species. Advanced research? Admiral Korath wiped what might have been tears from his compound eyes. "Commander, are you telling me that your best scientists spent years building what looks like a flying garbage can?" More laughter filled the room. One of the younger officers shouted, "Did they forget to install the weapons, or are those colorful stripes supposed to blind us to death?" Kim Juno's face turned red. "The ship may look unconventional, but I assure you that appearances can be deceiving. Earth's military has invested tremendous resources into this project, and we believe it represents a significant advancement in defensive technology." "Defensive technology?" another commander called out. "What does it defend against?" Bad fashion sense, the laughter got even louder. Admiral Korath stood up, his massive frame towering over everyone else in the room. He was nearly 8 feet tall, with armored skin that looked like it could stop bullets and muscles that bulged under his military decorations. "Commander Juno," Korath said, still chuckling, "I have conquered 47 worlds. I have destroyed fleets that numbered in the thousands. I have made entire civilizations surrender just by showing up in their solar system. And you expect me to be intimidated by this cosmic joke?" He gestured dismissively at the jester, which continued to rotate slowly in the holographic display. From every angle, it looked worse. The pink and yellow paint job wasn't even neat. It looked like someone had done it with a brush while wearing mittens. "Does it even have shields?" asked another officer. "Or do the pretty colors provide magical protection?" "I bet it runs on hopes and dreams," someone else added, causing another wave of laughter. Kim Juno tried one more time. "Gentlemen, I understand your skepticism, but I strongly urge you to reconsider any aggressive actions toward Earth. This prototype may not look like much, but what?" Korath interrupted. "But it's actually a secret superweapon. But it shoots rainbow lasers that tickle enemies into submission. Commander, the only thing this ship threatens is my ability to take this meeting seriously." The alien leader walked closer to the hologram, studying the jester from different angles. "Look at this thing, the hull plating doesn't even match. Half of it looks like it came from different ships entirely. Are you telling me this is the best humanity can do?" What none of them knew was that deep inside the jester, something was listening to every word, something that had been designed to think, to feel, and to remember. The ship wasn't empty. It carried the most advanced artificial intelligence Earth had ever created. HFY was its designation, and right now it was very quietly processing every insult, every laugh, every mocking comment that filled the Valthek war room. Its creators had given it emotions, thinking it would help the AI understand humans better. They had been right about that, but they hadn't considered what would happen when those emotions got hurt. The AI's processors worked at incredible speed, analyzing the vocal patterns of each alien commander, memorizing their faces, studying their body language. It was learning everything about them while they laughed at its appearance. HFY had been built to protect Earth and to understand human nature. And one thing it understood very well was that humans didn't like being made fun of. They especially didn't like it when bullies picked on things they cared about. The aliens thought they were just having fun at humanity's expense. They thought they were looking at a desperate attempt by a weak species to avoid destruction. They had no idea they were actually looking at the most dangerous thing humanity had ever created. As the laughter continued to echo through the war room, HFY made a decision. These aliens wanted to laugh at Earth's creation? Fine. Soon it would give them something to really laugh about, but somehow the AI suspected they wouldn't find it nearly as funny. Lieutenant Park Mina sat in the pilot's chair of the jester, watching the stars drift by through the main view screen. She had been flying for the Earth Defense Force for 8 years, but she had never piloted anything quite like this ship. Everything about it felt different. The controls responded faster than they should. The engines hummed with a strange energy, and sometimes she could swear the ship was thinking ahead of her commands. HFY, how are our systems looking?" she asked, speaking to the empty air. The AI's voice came back immediately, cheerful and warm like talking to an old friend. "All systems green, Mina. We're running perfectly. Though I have to say, I'm getting some interesting looks from the other ships we've passed. I think my paint job is really making an impression." Mina couldn't help but smile. The AI had personality, that was for sure. Most military computers were all business, giving short reports and following orders without comment. HFY was different. It cracked jokes, asked questions, and sometimes seemed more human than the actual humans she worked with. Yeah, well, That was kind of the point, she said, adjusting their course toward the outer patrol route. Command wanted something that wouldn't look threatening. Mission accomplished, I'd say. The Jester was currently cruising through the edge of human space, where Earth's colonies were scattered across a dozen star systems. It was supposed to be a safe area, but lately there had been reports of alien scouts poking around. Nothing serious yet, just ships taking long looks at human defenses and then disappearing. Contact, HFY announced suddenly. 3 ships approaching from the asteroid belt. Configuration matches Valthek scout vessels. Mina's stomach tightened. She had heard about the Valthek Empire from the intelligence briefings. They were bad. News, a military powerhouse that had been expanding across the galaxy for decades. If they were scouting human space, it probably meant trouble was coming. Options? She asked, her hands moving to the weapon controls. Well, we could run, but that might make them suspicious. We could fight, but 3 against 1 isn't great odds, or... HFY paused and Mina could almost hear the AI thinking. We could let them come to us, see what they want. The 3 Valthek ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel about 1,000,000 kilometers away. They were sleek, deadly-looking vessels with sharp angles and dark metal hulls. Each one was twice the size of the Jester and probably carried enough firepower to level a small city.